We'll say good morning. Let's begin. So we are picking up on page Reish Lamed Gimel in Perek Chav Beis, actually towards the end of chapter 22 of Mesillas Yesharim. So remember again, we're speaking over here about sinas harabanos, the need to go ahead and run away from kavod. So remember, to qualify this a little bit, we saw from the Ramchal that this idea of sinas harabanos means that a person, sometimes people go ahead and vie for leadership positions out of a sense of ego and not out of a sense of duty. So the goal, of course, is to avoid things like that, because whoever assumes positions to satisfy ego or to satisfy, self-motivated purposes, at the end of the day, that often leads to an abuse of power. So therefore, the Ramchal says, in general, a person should try to avoid exalted leadership positions, because too more often than not, a person ends up doing that as a result of the need to satisfy the ego. I just want to point out there's an interesting tension that exists over here. On one hand, the Ramchal is telling us sinas harabanos ubrichas hakavod, to run away again from positions of authority and to run away from honor. Remember, we have to reconcile that with the concept of b'makom she'ein ish. So sometimes, again, there are circumstances and situations where we have to step up because no one else is taking the reins. So this is very important, because even in those, you see a lot of times that there are things that need to get done, and yet people shy away from taking responsibility because of whatever the reason. And sometimes you can even hide under the cover of sanas harabanos ubrichas hakavod. So these are two very different things. In circumstances when we are needed, people have an obligation to step up, and that's whatever the circumstance, whether that's in one's family, in one's community, whatever that is. When a person is needed, person doesn't have the right to shy away from that. The person must step up, must be counted, and must help out. What the Ramchal is really referring to over here is the deeper motivation for why we do things. If a person is doing things, again, out of a sense of ego and out of a sense of self and of self-aggrandizement, that's when things become exceptionally dangerous and people utilize their positions sometimes, again, to their own detriment and to the detriment of others. So he gives examples. So Ot Sham, Rabbi Menachem B'Shem Rabbi Tanchum, Kol Makabel Alav Srara Kedei Lahanos Mimenu, Eina Elokinoiv. So this is incredible. So Rabbi Tanchum was stated that whoever accepts upon himself a position of leadership, a position of power, solely in order to go ahead and get benefit from that position, not for the purpose of helping, not for the purpose of aiding, but for the purpose ultimately of going ahead and deriving benefit from it. Listen to this. Eina Elev Kenoiv. He's no different than a person who commits adultery. Crazy. What does that mean? So the Ramchal explains the same way that a person who commits adultery, a man commits adultery with a woman, he is benefiting from someone who's not his. Right? He's benefiting from something that does not belong to him. So too, all the kavod in the world, this is actually a beautiful idea. All the kavod in the world belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All the kavod in the world all the honor in the world belongs to Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you want to borrow it or you want to use some of it, that's fine, as long as it is utilized in the proper way. But the moment that it is improperly used, it's no different than adultery. It's no different. Shunena migufa shalisha. Simichas man commits an act of adultery. He is deriving pleasure from the body of a woman who is not shaykh to him. Not shaykh to him. There's no relationship to him. So a person abuses kavod, a person abuses honor, takes that kavod that belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and misuses it. It's chas v'sholom kilu, he's committed adultery. An incredibly profound, first of all, just the insight that all kavod belongs to Hashem is an incredibly beautiful idea. All kavod belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he's willing to kind of give it out on loan. If you're going to use it appropriately, if you're going to do something wonderful with it, okay, fantastic. But lamaisif chasron going to abuse it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Eino ela kinena migufa shel isha. Od sham, Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo said, Ani wrote l'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu migresi kadosh, ha im ein b'cha kalamidos halalu sheyesh bi lo sekabel alav sra. Similar type of limud, going with the idea that all kavod belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all kavod belongs to Hashem. So Hashem says, okay, if you want to resemble me, right? If you're going to make yourself like me, then I'm happy to share my kavod with you. But if Lamaisa, you are not going to make yourself like me, then unfortunately I can't share my kavod with you. V'tamidi Rabbi Gamliel yochichu. This is so beautiful. The students of Rabbi Gamliel kind of show us what true Anava is. And remember, I will say all of this is humility. This aspect of humility represents running away from kavod, running away from honor, running away ultimately again from positions of authority. So listen to this. Shahayu mutzrachim mipnei aniyusam. So Rabbi Gamliel urged his students to assume public positions so they would have parnasa. They would have parnasa. Right at the end of the day, again, they were learning in yeshiva. It was time to get a job. So he encouraged them to go into positions of communal responsibility. They didn't want to. Why not? V'lo ratzu lekabel aleim surara. They did not, again, following this dictum, they did not want to go ahead and accept upon themselves any positions of authority. So what happened? Ramchal says, "Huma shamru perik koim ashuach zal shonom kimedumin shesuraros ani nosin lechem avdus ani nosin lechem." So Ramchal says to his students, "No, I think you guys misunderstood. You think I'm giving you kavod? You think I'm giving you kavod by giving you positions of communal authority, positions of communal responsibility? I'm not giving you kavod. I'm giving you avdos. I'm giving you servitude." So, which is really quite amazing. So Rabbi Gamliel was saying to his students, again, I will say it's a question of mindset. They didn't want to take any positions because they were concerned that at the end of the day, these positions would go to their head, that they would have these exalted positions of power and authority, and we're going to become Baalei Gaiva. Tushar says it's all a question of how you frame your communal service. If you go ahead and you frame it as we have lording over others, legislating laws for others, okay, it can become an incredible source of Gaiva. But Gamliel says that's not how we really look at it. I tell you to look at it like Avdos, that a person assumes a position of authority to the community. They're an eved to that community. They're avodim. They're an eved to those individuals. And when a person accepts that type of hashkafa in terms of their leadership, in terms of their authority, in terms of their responsibility, then not only ultimately does leadership not become a source of gaiva, not become a source of arrogance, but in fact it becomes a very humbling experience and an incredible source of anava. He goes on. He says, "Va'od amru." A very strong statement. Woe to those who accept upon themselves positions of authority, because positions of authority end up burying those who hold them. In other words, that unfortunately, what was curling over here from the Psachim, so what it sounds like on a basic level is that positions of authority have a way of causing premature death, whether it's the stress, whatever it might be. So, people think that positions of authority are so wonderful, but nebach, for those who have those positions, shemikaberes es bahala, it buries those who hold it. Umina, and the Gemara says so, and from where do we know this? Mi Yosef. We know it from Yosef. What happened with Yosef? Shemipnei shehinek atzmo b'rabbanos meis kodem echad. This is actually very interesting. Remember, Yosef, this detail you wouldn't necessarily glean from the psukim, but we know that Yosef was the second to youngest of the brothers. And yet again, he died before all of them. He died before all of them. Why? The Gemara attributes his premature death to his position of authority. We find other examples of this. The Navi calls, when Shmuel HaNavi passes away, so the Navi makes reference to the idea that he died at an advanced age. He died at an old age. Yet we know how old was Shmuel HaNavi when he died. He was 52 years old. He was 52 years old. So what's the pshat, right? How could it be that we're calling him old, but he's fit? No one would say that 52 is old. So why are they calling him old? Right? So again, the Malbim, others point out that he aged prematurely. He looked like an old man. He felt like an old man because of his position of authority. So therefore, again, the Gemara says over here, see what Ramchal is doing. On one hand, he's telling us exactly the need not to become arrogant over positions of authority. Then he transitions, and here's why you shouldn't become arrogant over positions of authority. Because the truth is, any position of authority doesn't make you better than anyone else. In fact, what it does is positions of authority make you an eved, make you a slave, make you a servant to those whom you serve. Not only that, but those who often hold positions, and I guess Yosef is a very prominent position. Those who hold these positions of authority, or like Yosef, like Shmuel, there's premature aging, and Rahman al-Islam, even death at a younger age because of the overwhelming nature of the responsibility. So Ramchal says, you put this all out. He said, if it was, we'll just end with this. Klalo shel davar ein harabanos ela masa gadol asher al shchem hanosi also. Therefore, you see that the rabbanos, the leadership, is an incredible weight upon those who bear it. Ki ad sha adam yachid v'yoshe b'soch beso muvla ben anoshim eno nitbas ela alatzmo. Because also, you know what the great part is? If you're a person's a regular guy, he could sit at home. He could sit at home, hang out with his friends. Muvla ben anoshim means he's absorbed with everyone else. And what happens? And again, eno nitbas ela alatzmo. The only person you're responsible is yourself. Kevan shenis ala l'rabbanos usrara kavar hu nitbas al kol misha tachas yado memshalto ki alav lahashkif al kulam veliros osam dea v'haskel ulahayshir ma'aseim. But the moment that a person is taken to a state of rabbanos, to a state of leadership, they're no longer simply responsible for themselves, but they're responsible for everyone whom they lead. They're responsible for everyone who, quote unquote, follows their direction. And responsibility means that they're responsible to make sure that they're doing the right thing. They're responsible ultimately to make sure they're living the right kind of lives. They're responsible ultimately for making sure that their constituents and followers are straightening out their ways. V'im lav, and if the leader is unsuccessful, va'ashamam b'rashechem ksiv. So ultimately, again, and if the leader is not successful, where does the responsibility lie? The responsibility lies with the leader, which is, we'll say, is an incredible yesod. So therefore, the Ramchal says, if a person is a regular person, right, the person doesn't have the responsibility of leadership. Life, Baruch Hashem, is very simple. All a person is responsible is for themselves. Now, obviously, leaving aside the mutual responsibility we all have for each other. But Lamaisa, a person doesn't have the all of the Rabbanos, some person does all for themselves. But the moment a person assumes a leadership position, of course, I remember this is any level of leadership, right? And all of us have different levels of leadership responsibilities. So ultimately, what happens when a person becomes a leader? Direct responsibility for everyone under your watch. And chas v'shalom, someone doesn't do what they're supposed to do, or someone doesn't actualize the way they're supposed to actualize, the responsibility in some way rests with the leader for that. Obviously, we all have our own responsibility to make ourselves who we need to be. And we can't deflect that responsibility upon anyone else. But here the Ramchal just trying to highlight the awesome responsibility that rests on the shoulders of those who bear the burden of responsibility. Therefore, the Ramchal telling us, don't get carried away with the kavod, because it's not about the kavod. And whatever little kavod comes from it pales in the amount of responsibility that the leader must shoulder in every moment. Also, we'll stop over here. We'll pick up in Meretz Hashem with kavod tomorrow.